No. There. Okay, so we're going to start. I'm going to be highlighting just important things. So the first one says, read the following situation, determine whether inequality correctly models. So we're just figuring out, are the inequalities right? So the first one says they want to spend, the mascot company wants to spend no more than $1,250 per month on the cost of school spirit items for sporting events. Production costs are $5 per shirt and $8 per banner.
$13.
So this is the first situation. The second inequality is the company also wants a monthly gross revenue from selling shirts and banners to be greater than $3,000. One shirt sells for $15 and one banner sells for $20. And so they're saying that S represents the number of shirts and B represents banners. And so here are their inequalities. So the first one's the yellow one, and we want to see, is this right? So is it $5 per shirt?
Yes.
Is it $8 per banner?
Yes.
Now, and
it's not greater than 150, so it's not true.
Good. So when we're looking at this, no more than, that doesn't mean greater than or equal to. What does it mean?
Less than or equal to.
Less than or equal to. So this would be something like at least. So the first part says, is the first inequality correct? So part A says, does the first inequality model the company's monthly costs? Explain. So when it says explain, I would like highlight that too, because when it just says right, what is the month? Is it correct? You would write yes or no. But if it says explain, that means you're gonna have to explain how you got it. Yeah.
What they get 15 and 20?
The second part, the green.
But I don't understand that.
We're focusing on the yellow part first. So is the first inequality correct?
No.
No. And so we would write no because the inequality sign is incorrect. So I'm going to show you the answers that Georgia Milestone gives me. And I can put this on YouTube, so if you want to have time to write it down, you can. But we know the first one's no because the inequality sign says greater than or equal to. And we know that no more than means equal to or less than, right? Less than or equal to. Then part B is the second one correct? So let's see. Is a greater than 3,000. Does this say greater than 3,000?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
It
it's
says
right.
one shirt's $15 and one banner's $20.
It's greater than 3,000, so it's yes.
So it's yes, right? And so that was part A and part B. And so here are the answers, and this is the exemplar response. So this is like what they're looking for. And this is from Georgia Milestone. This is all they give me. So these are probably the ones you want to focus on. So does anyone remember this was on your test?
No.
Nope.
Which one?
Unit 2B. It was the one toward, and I remember sitting in my classroom after pep rally finished. And you finished it during the pep rally, remember that?
Oh, I remember. Is that the one that I came to you? Is this the one that I got 100 on because I kept begging you?
Yeah.
I can't remember. I just remember Torrin taking it while he's getting crowned as the freshman thing.
Yeah.
All right, so the first one's no. The inequality uses the wrong inequality symbol. It shows that the cost of the shirt plus the cost of the banners is at least or greater than or equal to $1,250, but the company wants to spend no more than $1,250. And I'll put this answer key on too. So all these questions are basically ones you could see. I line your tests so they look like the milestone questions. So this is. Then the second one was yes. This inequality shows that the revenue from shirts plus the revenue of banners is greater than the company's. You're just explaining why it's yes. And so this would be a two-point question. So remember, each multiple choice is only 1 point. So this is a 2-point question. So the first one would be, if you got both of them, you get 2 points. If you only got one of them correct, you get 1 point.
But they got both of them.
So no, this is 4.
Oh.
You get either or.
Okay, I'm gonna go to the next one, and I'll put it back to the beginning when you're done, just for
extra credit, right?
For participating and being present and having your phone away. And participating. Do you have the packet?
Sure.
That's probably the first.
These tests and
All right, next one. So this was on your test too. Kim uses these steps to solve the system equation of linear equations. So system, remember, means 2 equations. And so if X and Y are on the same side, what did they use here? What type of method? Not slope intercept, that's when Y is by itself. What type of, did they use substitution, elimination, or graphing?
Graphing.
They graphed here?
Substitution.
You're just shouting things
Elimination.
out. They used
Because
elimination.
they're eliminating the 8
And
and
so
the 12.
the X, they're eliminating the X. So, see how it says explain the steps they took? You're gonna have to explain each step. So you would be like, first, they saw that both X and Y were on the same side. So they wanted to manipulate the first equation. So what did they want the X's to both be?
4.
What did they want the X's to both be?
8.
8.
So you
So
multiply 2
they
by
first
4.
multiplied. Hi. Yeah. Thank you.
Midnight. She multiplied 2 by 4 and 8 by 1.
He multiplied the first equation by what, though?
4.
4. That's what you want to write first. He multiplied the first equation by 4. You want a bagel, too? There's some out here. Or Andre eats them all.
It's not healthy.
I told him that. He's trying to tell me it's healthy.
Carbs.
Yeah. So he multiplied the first equation by 4. What did they multiply the second equation by? Because they're both 8x. What do they have to multiply the second one to change the sign? What's this invisible number right here?
1.
-1. So the second, they multiplied the second equation.
Oh, that's a negative?
Mm-hmm. And we have to put that invisible 1. Multiplied the second equation. Equation
Decent paper.
by -1. And then he did this to eliminate x by adding the equations.
What is our schedule?
The equations.
Wait, did I say mom?
So, 3. When he added them, when he added the equations, what happened?
They crossed out.
What crossed out?
The X.
The x eliminated.
No.
I like how I'm writing it, so I'm not going to show you. I'll show you the response, but I don't like how they ordered it. Eliminated. And when we added negative 12y plus 12y, what did it equal?
0.
0. It equaled 0.
Wait, where did you get plus?
Because remember, they didn't show that part right here. So what they did is they had 8x minus 12y equals 8. And when they multiply
Oh, right, you
negative
multiply negative times. Okay, it's
1, so
positive.
they end up getting this. Yeah. So when they added that, they ended up getting 0. And when they add the 8 plus -5, what do they get?
0. Oh, 3.
3.
Wait, but aren't both 8 negative? Or is that an arrow?
That's an arrow.
Oh.
So, and when he added,
Can I go to the bathroom?
Here, for those who don't want to.
8x plus 8 plus -5, you got 3. And then it says, and then we have to explain when does 0 equal 3? Like in general, does the number 0 equal 3? No. 0 doesn't equal 3. So this system is false. Make sure you're running. So make sure like you're just explaining each step. So when you're explaining something, usually it's going to be each step you took or each step someone else took or where they went wrong. And the next part is what can you conclude about these? So does everyone have this down? Okay. So next part, what can we conclude because 0 doesn't equal 0? Because 0 doesn't equal, what was it, 3? Equal 3, we would have how many solutions?
No solution.
No solution. So that means that will the lines ever cross? The lines will never cross. If the lines never cross, what type of lines are they? Because
Parallel.
yes, because they're parallel lines. What do parallel lines have that's the same? They have the same, not the same,
So,
yep, same slope, different what?
no, what?
Yeah, different lines. Do you guys remember this from your test?
Yes. I might have to go over this again. Yeah, like, a week, right?
Yeah, and so Unit 2B, if you don't remember systems, on Monday during Flex, make sure you sign up for that, because we're just going to go through systems. You have on Fridays.
It's fine.
Yeah, Monday. And this one.
Well, Monday, Tuesday, and Friday.
I thought like, math, a week, right?
Friday. It's the end of the week. Last year, math was on Monday, so I'm glad it's not. All right, so this is another one. This is actually from your exponential test. So Amy owns a graphic design store. She purchases a new printer in her store. The printer depreciates, which means what? Decreases by a fixed rate of 14%. So remember, rate is always in percent.
Doesn't that mean it's money?
Mm-mm.
Exponential.
Remember, if you see a percent, you know it's exponential. They give you the equation right here, though. And so can be modeled to use the value of the printer in dollars after 2 years. Look at your formula sheet and go to where it says exponential. See where it says y equals a b to the x. And so, like, as soon as you get your formula sheet, I would make little notes of things that you need to remember that you may forget. Because what does a mean? What is a in your exponential equation? Initial, starting, your y-intercept,
And B
initial.
is.
So write this on your formula sheet. Like when you get it, I would take little notes like this to like remind you, like, oh yeah, like things that you may forget. What does B represent?
Rate of change.
Growth or decay factor. We call it growth or decay factor. And the rate is your R that's in there. And so X is usually time, and Y is usually total. And so remember, you don't need this on here today, but like I would write 1 plus R is growth, and 1 minus R is decay. That's what your B is. But they give you that right here. See how they changed 14 to a decimal, 14% to a decimal? They already gave you that work. And so what does 2400 represent? Initial,
Why?
your y-intercept, but it's your initial, remember initial and y-intercept are the same thing. Initial amount of the what?
The fixed. The store.
What are we talking about?
Printer.
Printer. The initial amount of the printer.
Oh, wasn't
When
this
we
on
bought
the
it.
test? It takes 24 months.
We bought it
No, wait, no.
was $2,400.
It takes 12 months. A year.
You'll see, you'll see, you'll see.
No.
So that's your first answer. That's all they want. So explain. Again, I would, when you have that highlighting tool, like when you see explain, don't spend too much time on this, but just make sure you're explaining it. The next question says, what is the factor? Right, do you guys see that? what is the factor? Don't explain. Don't waste your time. So the next part, it just says, what is the factor? And so we know the factor is B, right? So we know it's what's in parentheses. So what is in parentheses?
0.14.
It's 1 minus 0.14. What does that equal? Dollar minus 14 cents.
1 minus 0.14.
0.86.
86 cents. It depreciates 86 cents
Nope.
each year.
They just want this. 0.86 is your factor. It's decreasing by 14%. We already know it's decreasing by. They want, if they say factor, that is what's in the parentheses. So that B is your growth or decay. If they use that word factor, they want the B. If they use the rate, they want the percent.
So it depreciates 80.86.
You just need to write 0.86.
Oh, you don't need to write.
Nope, because it says what is. So if it says explain, if it doesn't say explain, literally write 0.86. 0. Okay. Amy also considered purchasing a printer, so now she wants you to make a new equation. So it costs this new printer costs $4,000, depreciates, which means what? Decreases. So it's 1 minus R, right? By 25% each year. And they want to know out of these two printers, which will have more value. So let's create this one. What is 4,000 considered? Your initial. So 4,000 parentheses 1 minus. How do I turn 25% into decimal?
125.
Beautiful. And how many years do they want us to find it in?
5. I found it. The answer would be.
That's definitely not on there.
Huh?
I didn't put that on there. There's questions like it. And then the other one, we would start with the other one, right? 2,400, 1 minus 0.14, which is 0.86 to the fifth. So you want to find both these answers, the original printer and the new one.
22 months.
So first find this answer by putting it in your calculator.
What is 1 minus 0.5?
Literally type it in, no, literally type it like this, 4,000 parentheses, 1
What?
minus 0.25.
You dirty.
Don't, shh, it's recording too. So make sure you're putting it in your calculator just like that.
I forget one,
That's
because I feel you
949.21.
What is it?
949.21.
949? So 949. I was going to round some of your stuff. Then what about the other one?
1,129.
Thank you.
1,000.
125.
So which printer is worth more?
No.
The original. So it just says which printer will have more value, which printer will have more value.
The
I would just write the $2,400. You can even add in how much more would be worth. How do we figure out how much more it's worth? Yeah. What is 1,129 minus 9? What's 9 minus 9? 0. Carry the 1. What's 12 minus 4? 10 minus 1. Or 10 minus 9? 1. So it would be worth $180 more.
Why? Really?
Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Alright, last part. And I'll put this up at the end. Amy wants to replace the printer, that original printer, the $2,400 one. So this equation. She wants to sell her current printer and make a $150 profit over the value of the printer after 6 years. So after 6 years. At what price will she need to sell the printer to make a $150 profit? Round your answer to the nearest dollar and write your answer on the lines provided. So, how do I figure out what the printer was worth in 6 years?
What is this one?
What would I put the exponent to be?
6.
6.
Put it to the 6. Let me know what you have.
I got
Round to the nearest dollar.
I'm just saying.
it. Yeah.
971. Now, that's how much the printer is worth. But if she wants to make a $150 profit, what would I need to add to it?
India. India.
What would I need to add to this to make a $150 profit? Because I want to make $150 more than what it's worth.
Okay, I have a question.
Mhm.
Are we going through this whole package?
Just the open-ended. What would I have to add? If the printer's worth $971, I want $150 more than what it's worth.
Plus 150
One.
equals 1.
There's a lot of open-ended.
1,121.
So you would have to sell, and remember, it just says, around your answer, it says, at what price will she need to sell it? What will she need to sell it at? She would need to sell it at,
Plus tax.
Would this still make sense?
this exponential.
Do you think they would give us extra credit if we add plus tax?
No.
Don't we get it wrong?
Yes. Don't do too much. The point of going over these is so you don't do too much. You don't do too little, and you don't do too much. Like this would be the answer.
Okay, are we still on the same one that we left off?
Wrong part. All right. So it takes Matt 20 months to save $1,000. Write an equation that models the average number of months X Matt saves each month. Write the answer on the lines provided. So what do they want? Do they want the answer or what do they want?
Y.
How much?
Write in
Equation.
just the
So
equation.
Y equals.
So if he wants to save 1,000
Oh.
and it's 20 months, he wants to figure out how much per what.
Month.
So month
100
would be
every
your
month. No.
So
50 every month.
remember, they just want the slope. That's it.
That's it.
That was it?
They just want the equation. That's it.
Oh, right.
50 every month.
And then you're on part B. Then part B says how much money in dollars did Matt save each month?
50.
$50. And how he got that? You
In
don't
my
need to even
head.
show your work. You divide by 20, you're getting X equals 50. So part B, wherever it is, on part B, the next one, you would write $50.
Yeah, I was using. Yeah.
Okay. Good with that? All right, this has to do with median and mean. So, remember when I did my song, skew to the left, skew to the right? What did I sing?
Maximum.
No.
Median.
Median. So, when your data is skewed to the left, like that means it's going one way or the other, or there's any outliers, to look at your center of your data, you always use the median. If it's normal distribution, you can use either or. But if there's outliers, the reason is if they're looking for the average right here of how many cars are going past an intersection. So here's how many cars they got. 78, 158, 63, 71, 56, 67, 75, and 64. So they're all around 60 to 70, right? Is there an outlier here?
No. But 158.
That one is an outlier. It's way bigger. It's something that's way bigger or way smaller than the rest of them, right? So Jeff says on average, so what does average mean?
The
The mean, right? So he's saying use the mean, that 79 cars pass through the intersection each Monday morning. Maria disagrees, right? Maria says that the mean cannot be used and uses the median instead to describe the number of cars that pass through the intersection. So she says that 69 cars pass through the intersection. So they're saying which one describes the middle more? But even look at it. 79 is literally in the middle of the highest two numbers, right? That would not represent the middle of your data because there's an outlier. So whose method best describes the center?
Media.
Maria, because she uses the what?
Median.
Yes. And
Wait,
then
which one was the mean again? Mean is adding up all the numbers.
and
Right?
dividing by how many? Yeah.
The median is just the number that appears the most, or the one that's
No,
in the
that's
middle?
median is when you line them up and the middle number.
Oh,
Remember with the box plot?
so where'd she get 69 from?
She lined all those numbers up and 69 was the number. Sometimes remember if there's
Oh,
odd
right, if it's
numbers.
the same number.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's
And do you guys
two
remember
numbers.
how to put it into your calculator? Stat
Yes.
edit You put everything in
Calc,
one, and then you go to stat, calc, and that one bars, whatever it's called. I'm gonna have a calculator cheat sheet session one day after school. I'll let you know when though. So all for part A, all you have to do is write median, justify your answer, and I'm gonna write what she says is literally exactly.
Would you be sad if you didn't pass?
You are. It's not a concern.
It's okay. You
All
think
right.
everyone's gonna pass?
I think people who are
It'd be
given, people who are here and.
You're gonna see certain people next year.
All right, 158 is an outlier. Do you want me to write this down or can I orally tell you?
Or
Well,
158 is an outlier. I'll just do it just in case people are watching this. It is an outlier and skews the mean. Skews the mean. That is why the center of the data and so when it says justify or explain, make sure you need to explain in detail. Center of the data is higher when Jeff found the average. This is literally what I said, but because Maria noticed an outlier.
oh, Jeff didn't see that.
Because notice an outlier to realize that using the median would best describe the center of data.
Math is the only place people outside me causing data no one else.
The center. Since the median is not effective. Okay.
What do you mean by skews?
Skewed. Remember when I said your data is skewed to the left, skewed to the right? That
Yeah.
means all your data is kind of pushed in one way. That means there's outliers. You know, median, median. And so even my students from last year, I annoy them with those songs, but they said it's
Yeah. That's how the song goes.
all right. Next one. We got how many more? Two more open-ended.
Don't fly.
All right. What are the zeros of the function? So how could we find the zeros? But you have to explain how you found the answer. So I would use your calculator as a way to check your work. But what are the other three methods?
Box
that we can
method,
use?
for method,
You're
and
gonna talk.
distribute.
That's multiplying.
Discrimin
Quadratic formula.
oils.
Is that what I'm-
It's a quadratic formula,
Square equal b plus or minus the square root
Yep.
of.
and that's right on your sheet, on your formula sheet. So quadratic formula, factoring,
Zero. Blue.
finding your zeros. That's what you're finding though, right here, zero.
Blue.
And factoring and completing the square. So you do need, when they ask you to explain, you can use that as a way to check your work, but when you're explaining, you want to explain how you did it. So if you're already using quadratic formula, I would practice doing that in your calculator. So remember that math, turning it into a fraction and writing the A, B, and C in there and plugging it in, yeah. So at the bottom, see on your bottom of your paper, it says quadratic formula.
Yes.
So make sure to write an arrow right now where it says quadratic formula and write zeros, x-intercepts, solutions. So Andre, on your formula sheet, write zeros, x-intercepts, solutions. So if you want to do that, you can do that. Or the easiest way to probably do it is factoring. So when I'm factoring, what is my A?
Negative.
A is 1.
Oh,
Remember, it's a leading it's a coefficient.
negative.
Negative 6 and C.
Wait, is this the one with the X?
Yeah, and that's called factoring. So make sure if they ask you, you have to explain that this is factoring. So that's the one I'm using. And so I would say, okay, what is 1 times 8?
8.
8 and adds to negative 6. Notice that when A is 1, it's a lot easier to factor. When A is not 1, I would probably use a quadratic formula if you're comfortable with that. So what multiplies to 8 and adds to negative 6?
82.
Negative 2 and negative 4. Ding, ding, ding. So first,
Okay.
I factored the quadratic function. And so when you factor, how do you write the factors?
You write X
X equal, X
minus 2 and X minus 4, and then
And what do
you
we make them equal to?
0.
0. Second thing we did, we made each factor equal to.
Isn't showing our work basically
You
explaining
can't
how
show
we
your
do
work
it?
because remember that if it said justify your answer, then showing your work would be okay. But remember, this is a computer-based test.
Oh, right.
Mhm.
Right.
So we made each factor equal to 0. And what's the last thing I need to do? What do I need to? I need
Do
to
the reciprocal, so plus 2.
or not reciprocal, the inverse, right? Reciprocal means I flip it.
You're
So
not flipping it. You're making it a negative to a positive.
yeah, but that's not reciprocal. Reciprocal would be like making this negative 1 over 2. That would be flipping the fraction. So
X equals 2 and X equals
so 3 we solve
X equals 2
For
and X
X.
equals
for x by solving like a one-step equation. So we add 2 to both sides, we add 4 to both sides, and so what does x equal?
X equals 2 and negative 4. Positive.
Positive 4. So 4, I found my 2 x-intercepts, or I found my zeros
But that's when we changed the first one.
to be, you're thinking of vertex form.
Oh.
But remember, if they're in parentheses, it's always kind of the opposite. So if it's factors, it's the opposite. Vertex form, you're thinking of, see where it says vertex form, where it's just quadratic formulas? X minus
Oh,
h.
yeah.
Yeah, you're thinking of that. There's to be 2 and 4. So when it says explain how you did it or things like that, just make sure. If they just said what are the zeros, just write the zeros. 2 and 4. I just don't want you guys to waste time. That's why I've been giving you those. I think all of you guys are in my support class, aren't you?
No.
Besides Jada.
I don't need to be in the support class.
I'm not saying.
I'd rather be in support than for.
I am higher than all the other people in my
Okay,
class.
so next one. Next one says it's part B of this problem, and they're trying to find the minimum function. So they're trying to see on your formula sheet. See where it says quadratic formulas.
Yeah.
See where it says standard form, vertex form.
Move.
I want you to write an arrow. And so how will we get from standard to vertex form? What method do we use?
You use
I want you to write this.
quadratics.
I want you to write this on your formula sheet. We use completing the square. And so basically the blank method.
I thought you called out the difference between
Nope,
vertex.
that's for those. This is the blanks where I go blank and I say it really weird. So on your formula sheet, I would write an arrow from from one to the other to use the completing the square, the blank method. And so let's get this to be completely square. So the first thing we do is we set the equation equal to what?
Zero.
We'll make it equal to y because we're just getting it in vertex form. Then the second thing we do is move the constant. So first, did he move the constant to the other side?
No.
No. So first, he forgot to move the constant.
Next year you should make a song about that.
Sure.
Now the people.
And then go,
Oh.
can you not go down?
Okay.
You're like, yeah, so
Well, that's how deep here.
that's what they take home. His dad is complete.
It was first he got to make a constant.
Good save. Okay. So first he forgot to move the constant 10. Do you need me to rewrite that or you good?
I'm good.
Alright. First he forgot to move the constant. So it should have been x squared minus 6x plus 10 equals y. And he should have subtracted 10 on both sides. And then he should have had the blank, right? He should have put a blank plus blank
Oh, is that the
Equals
one that
negative
I'm really
10.
good at?
plus blank. Yeah, and so if we're going from standard to vertex, you always use completing the
And
square.
then you do the 2.
And you
you
take
do
half of
3.
negative 6. What's half of negative 6?
3.
Negative 3. And we square it to get what?
9.
9.
Positive 9.
And then put
What
9.
did he add to both sides? What did he
Negative
add?
9.
He subtracted 9.
And then you're gonna do negative 10 plus 9, and that gives you negative 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then whatever you do, x positive negative 9, no 3,
3.
and
Right,
then
because
you
you're
do
factoring it.
that.
So now, if you were going to go about doing this the way to get the zeros, if I were to square root both sides, that would get me the last problem, the zeros. But they just want it in vertex form to get the minimum. So remember, minimum's your y coordinate for vertex. So the only last thing I have to do, how do I move one back over?
You make it a positive.
I add 1, right? So you end up getting
So it's not a
x.
square. I
minus
thought you had to do the square root so that it wouldn't be squared anymore.
No, because they want us to get it in vertex form. They wanted us to get it in the form that says, like, vertex form right here. If I were to square root both sides, those would get me my x-intercepts. And so, remember, the vertex is the opposite still of what's in that parentheses. So what's the opposite of negative 3?
Positive.
Positive 3. And what's your y-coordinate of your vertex?
13.
Positive
Over
1.
here. 1. So what is the correct minimum value?
3, 1.
1. Remember, the minimum is 1 because that's just your y. So I would even remember vertex form also has to do with transformations. So see how it says ax minus h? See how it says this?
Yes.
So what is minus h to the what?
Second power.
Minus h to the
Left.
to the
Right.
So maybe write this down. So like as soon as you get your formula sheet, you should write this down.
K is up and down.
Plus h is to the
Left.
plus k is moving
Up.
up. Minus k is
Down.
moving down.
Medium.
What about when a is negative?
1.
Negative Nancy means it's going down. What about positive Patricia?
Up.
She's smiling. If it's a fraction, like 1/2, it would get wider. If it's a whole number, it gets narrower. So these are this is also has to do with transformations. So as soon as you get that formula sheet, like you're going to be handed that, hopefully, or if you're even handed your scrap paper, I would write down like half the transformations so you don't forget. But in this case, all you needed to say was the mistakes he made, and that 1 was your minimum. How could you also get your vertex? What formula can we use?
Quadratic.
What part of your quadratic?
Can you give me a clue?
Here's the quadratic formula.
The square root part.
Oh,
I think the
axis of symmetry.
And what is it?
B squared 2a. It's negative b divided by 2a.
This is your axis of symmetry. And to get your y coordinate, just plug it in, plug it in. Remember, we could use this. What is this then in the radical? What's that called?
That's the
Starts with a D.
discriminant.
Discriminant. Remember, discriminates and tells you how many solutions.
I was thinking something else, something that I called for.
Discriminant, so it tells you how many solutions.
I sometimes call it the discrimination.
And so the whole thing gives you your x-intercepts, zeros, solutions.
It is an accident in this table.
So I would write this down so you can see, okay, what are there are three different things. They give you this formula. You see exactly where it is on your sheet. The whole thing, if you plug in A, B, and C, it's all on one side. Get to they're asking for x-intercepts, zeros, solutions, or roots. You know you can use that. And it's a quadratic function. This gives you your axis of symmetry, or x-coordinate of your vertex. And discriminant tells you just how many solutions. So 1, 2, or 0. So if it's negative, how many solutions is there?
0.
No solutions, good. If it's positive,
1, 2,
2 solutions. If it's 0,
1.
1 solution. And the reason is because, remember, what's the square root of 0?
0.
So there's no positive and negative 0.
0 is just.
So I would write this down on your formula sheet. So as soon as you get your formula sheet, if these are things you may forget, use your formula sheet and you can write on it so that you remember how to do it, everything.
Does they have a formula sheet on the milestone?
That
Like
is-
a dictionary?
This is your formula sheet. This is it.
Wait, we can use that?
Well, they're going to give it to you, yeah. But that's why I'm saying write this down so you kind of remember. So as soon as you get your formula sheet, you can write on it. So as soon as you get your formula sheet, you can write on whatever you want on it. So these are the things that you want to keep track of. So they give you vertex form. So you want to go, okay, in case there's transformations, I know minus h is to the right, and so on. And I know if I'm going from standard to vertex, that you're using completing the square. All right, last one, right? So this one's weird. Lamar is knitting a scarf at constant rate. He makes each row of the scarf 1 foot wide. So how wide is each hour is 1 foot. Before starting the next row, at various times he records how long he's been knitting, the length of the scarf, and knitting and the length of the scarf. After knitting for a total of 11 hours, he records his data, which is right here. So they're saying Lamar determines the rate at which he's knitting by calculating the slope of the graph. The slope of the graph is about 0.4. Explain why the unit rate for the graph could be 0.4 feet per hour. Explain why the unit rate for the graph could also be 0.4 square feet per hour.
Is this conversions?
Not yet. The next part of this is conversions.
No.
So, first of all, which dot should I use to figure out the slope?
The
First
second
one.
No, because that's like
Second
second one. See how it's right in the middle?
Yeah.
And so remember, it's change in y over change in x. So what is your y coordinate here?
2.
2. What's your x coordinate?
5.
5. And what does the y represent?
Starting point.
No, it says the length of
The length.
the what? Okay. Look at the y
Knitting.
axis right
Oh, the
here.
scarf.
Yeah, the length of the scarf. See how
I
it
said
tells you
knitting.
the length, but you need to know in feet the length of the scarf. So feet. So it's 2 feet per every 5 what?
Hour.
Hours, right? And so they're talking about the length here. So how can I find the unit rate? You just divide them. What's 2 divided by 5?
None. 0.5. 0.3. 0.2. 2.5.
Isn't that 1 point something?
2 divided by 5.
2.5. Wait, 2 divided by 5? 0.4.
0.4. So you can explain that the length is 0.4 because he knits 2 feet every 5 hours, and when I divide them, I get 0.4.
That's not bad.
That would be the first part of the answer. The second part is square feet per hour, and so that indicates your area, right? How do you find the area? What's the equation for area?
A squared plus B squared equals C squared.
That's Pythagorean theorem.
A plus
Circumference.
length times width equals height.
No, length times width equals area. Length times width times height is volume. You'll deal with that next year too. The length times width is area. So what did we find our length was? In here. What did we just find it was? 0.4, right? And then they said the width, how much do they do the width each time? How wide it is. Yep. How wide is it?
1 foot.
1 foot. So the width is 1. So what is 0.4 times 1?
0.4.
0.4. So that's why the area would also be. And so here are the answers. The graph passes through the point 2, 5. The length of the scarf is changing at a rate of 2 feet per every 5 hours, or 0.4 feet per hour. Area is equal to length times width. The width is 1 foot, so the area changes at the same rate of the length. Therefore, the unit rate could be written as 0.4 square feet per hour. Then it says, I'll put this back in a second just because that will over your time. Lamar decides to represent his unit rate in 0.4 feet per what?
Hour.
1 hour. He wants to convert this to inches per hour.
60 minutes.
Nope, because they don't want minutes. What do they want?
Hour.
They just want feet to hour. They want it still in hours. So hour is going to stay here, right? We just need to change feet. So feet's at the top. Where's it go now?
At the bottom.
The denominator, right?
So,
And 1 foot is how
12
many inches?
inches.
And so how would I get your answer?
Cross out the
Close.
You would cross out feet, and then what would you do?
Hours.
Multiply 0.4 times 12. You don't need to actually get the
Right.
answer. You don't need to get the answer.
What is the point?
Just as explain how he could. And so the answer, there are 12 feet in a foot, so Lamar can multiply 0.4 times 12. And so these questions, oh, I have one more. And that one's one from your test, and a lot of you did not get this right.
Wait, which one?
The next one. The next one's also from your Unit 2B test. Okay, so last one. So Sean recycles. He earns 10 cents for each bottle he recycles, and 5 cents for each can he recycles. He earned $12.75 and a total of 210 bottles. Remember, money goes with money goes with money. Total goes with total goes with total. So he wrote these. The first part just says, explain how you know that X represents the number of bottles. So how do we know that X goes with bottles and not cans?
Because it's bottles and cans are the same things, and bottles go with bottles.
You have to fill with each unit. And
He didn't label anything though. How do I know that Y?
Oh, bottles is X and cans.
oh,
is
because we, on the second equation, we put 10x, and it was for each bottle.
Damn.
That's the answer.
Team.
So in the second equation, he wrote 10x, and we know that 10 cents
It's how much
is how much it is for each bottle. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
This was on your test. Next one, Sean graphs the lines to represent the equations. What are the coordinates of the point where the two lines intersect? Write your answer. They just want the coordinate. So I'm going to show you, first of all, I'm going to use elimination again because X and Y are on the same side. So I want to get them to be the same number, different side. So what I'm going to do is I want them to be 10x and negative 10x. So how can I get this one to be negative
Multiply by
10x?
1.
How can I get it to be negative 10x?
A negative 1.
What do I multiply x times what equals negative 10x?
Oh, negative 10.
Negative 10. And so you end up getting negative 10x minus 10y equals negative 2,100. Then what do I do with the two equations?
You have to
Do I subtract them, multiply them, add them?
subtract them, add them.
Add.
You do that.
So what happens with 10x?
Cross
Crosses out. What's 5 minus 10?
Negative 5.
Y.
And then
Then you divide negative 5 on each
when I
side.
add these, I end up getting negative 825. Then how do you get y by
Divide.
itself?
Divided by Y.
Divide by 5.
Negative 5. Don't drop that negative.
Y equals
And you end up getting y equals 165. So that means how many cans did he recycle?
165
165.
chocolate like chocolate.
Then how do I get the x coordinate?
You you
You have to put it
do the exact same thing, but with
Why?
Why?
You don't need to do the exact same thing. You could just plug it in to one of the equations. So I could just plug in instead of y, just plug in 165 and solve.
oh,
You could do that, but that's a lot more work. You don't need to do all that. How do I get x by itself?
you subtract it by 210, and then you get
45.
45. I got
So in order for him to reach these goals, he would need to do 45 bottles with his 155 cans. So this is all you need to put in the answer. So before you leave,